I'm going to share my screen again today. So let me just make sure I got that good to go. So today we're going to be talking about Business Development 101 and an introduction to business development, in particular in the federal market, right? You can do this everywhere. It's just sales. But fundamentally, business development is 1/3 of the federal sales lifecycle, the way I describe it, right? You have business development, which for this scenario is sales, is identifying an opportunity, many opportunities, right? So business development is identifying opportunities. Capture is really trying to shape those opportunities in a way that your company can win. And then proposal management is writing a winning proposal that the government just must choose. So they award the contract to you. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today is business development and getting into federal agencies. And I'm going to cover 3 topics in particular. The first thing I'm going to cover is the idea that business development is about knowing an agency better than the agency knows themselves. And that isn't that hard because most people in a company, an agency, et cetera, they just know their job. If you think about somebody working in HR in the Navy, do they really know about what's going on the ships or, downrange or over in logistics, facility, et cetera? They know HR because that's their job. They're so busy being an expert about that. But if your job is to be an expert about the Navy, you will know more than any one person theoretically in there, certainly as well as anybody in there if you commit to knowing that agency better than anybody in there knows it themselves. Second thing I want to cover is where you can find names, numbers, and email addresses for the people you want to build relationships with. When you go in and do business development, it's about knowing an agency better than they know themselves and building relationships and identifying opportunities, right? So that's why you want to find the people's contact information. And that goes into the third point I'm going to cover today is where can you find slam dunk opportunities? I'm going to give you 10 ideas of where you can find slam dunk opportunities. I'm going to give you 10 ideas on where you can find names, numbers, and email addresses for the people at the agency you want to contact. I do try to put in here recently that this training and who this training is for, it's primarily for people obviously in the business development side, right? But it's for small business owners. I'm talking to small business owners who have many hats, and business development is just one of your hats. So how do you do that particular role in your job as a small business owner? And then I'm also talking to business developers. Those of you who are just coming in or thinking about getting in, what I talk about today will be very helpful for you even being a junior business developer. And it certainly is helpful to the experienced business developers because I teach this a lot to customers that I have who have many business developers. How do they do their job even better, more effectively, right? They know how to have the relationships once they're in there, but I give them tactics, strategies for doing business development better. And then the last one is anybody within a company. And in my last company, I had multiple people who had primary responsibilities with secondary responsibilities around business development. And so if you have people related who have responsibility for identifying opportunities or building relationships, these might be the people you're sending to matchmaking events, et cetera. This is good training for them as well. So if they're not here, let your colleagues know about it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. And that's why I'm here today to provide this training for you. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in deeper into today's training. The first step of a business developer is to research an agency and get to know them better than they know themselves. We talk about the 7-step to success in the federal market. I teach the 7 steps, and the first step is research. And research is about gathering that material that helps you understand an agency better than they understand themselves. But there's certain reasons why you should do this, and I really want you to understand it, right? People do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? But there's also this other line that says, no one cares what you know until they know that you care. Well, how can I communicate to an agency or to a buyer that I care? One way that I can communicate to an agency or a buyer that I care is by knowing what their organization does, what their agency does. So in this case, what do they do? What does the Department of Veterans Affairs do? Who do they support, right? Do you understand that they support veterans, not active duty, not civilians or somebody else? They support veterans. Well, what do they support them with? Well, 3 particular areas, right? They support them with benefits as they're coming out of the active duty services, and we're vets for life kind of thing. And so there's so many benefits that are available to us. They support us on healthcare, and they support us in death when we die and helping us maybe get buried in a cemetery. So there's the National Cemetery side of the VA. Understanding the VA, what they do and who they support really helps communicate that you care about the VA because you took the time to understand it, and they will begin to see that you actually care about them. And then when you have an understanding of what an agency does, like the VA, you begin to figure out where do you fit, whether you do lawn care services or elevators or SharePoint or cyber or data, any of these professional services or construction and manufacturing, you will know where you fit into that team, that agency. And that's really important because when you have conversations, you want to be able to communicate that to them. The next thing is I want you to understand this concept of shifting authority in your favor. When you take the time to research an agency, and I'll talk in a minute about how do you do that, but when you truly take the time to understand an agency and know that agency really, really well, we call it agency intimacy, right? When you do, then you're shifting the authority in your favor. And when I talk about shifting authority in your favor, what I mean is when you have a first meeting with somebody, federal buyer in particular, right? You're coming in like this, you're here, and you're the unknown risk, and you're below them. And then as you start talking and communicating what your company does, et cetera, you might shift that authority a little bit so that you're on the same levels now. Instead of below them, you've shifted up and now you're on the same levels with them. You're communicating or demonstrating through your discussions your subject matter expertise. They can see that you know stuff. They begin to respect the fact that you're a subject matter expert, but they still don't really know whether you care. But when you begin to demonstrate that that you do care, you understand their agency, you've read their documents, you've taken the time to research them and do your homework, then you will have shifted the authority in your favor. It doesn't make you better than them. It just makes them look up to you now, as I describe it, as a trusted advisor. So you go from an unknown risk to a subject matter expert they can respect, but they don't know if you care, to a trusted advisor who they look to for valued advice. And that's where you want to be. That's a business developer's job, is to help your company be seen that way by the buyers. And the last thing is when you know an agency better than anybody else, it helps your capture efforts and it helps your proposal efforts. If you talk to proposal managers, they will tell you that, hey, there's all these things we need. Like if you actually knew what their mission was or their challenges, et cetera, then that would help me when I'm writing a proposal, because I can write a proposal much more driven towards or written towards that agency's particular unique values, unique needs, et cetera. So we'll talk more about that as I go forward. Why you should do it, I just described. What you should learn is a little different, right? I want you to learn, most importantly, what I described a minute ago, the mission, the vision, what do they do? Sometimes in DoD, it's called the commander's intent, right? What are they thinking? And the commanders will put out this document that describes their intent. Look, this is where I'm trying to drive us over the next year or 4 years, 5 years, or whatever. So you want to understand that, get an understanding from that perspective, but then you also want to know their challenges. What are they running into? If you get an RFP or a PWS, et cetera, it might touch on a few specific challenges related to some work or something. Hey, we want to address this many users, but what challenges are the agency personnel facing? Overall, what challenges do the agencies face? And when you understand those challenges, you can begin to crosswalk them to a requirement you might be trying to go after, or products and services that you provide that can address those challenges, right? And that's really important. You need to understand what you sell and how it can align to the need or the challenges that an agency buyer has. The last thing I mentioned that you want to learn when you're doing research like this is the inside of a strategic plan and some other things. I'll talk about it, but goals, objectives, and metrics. And so agencies lay out every year, hey, here's our strategic goals. Sometimes it goes across multiple years, but not just the agency. You'll find different major departments, like the IT department might do it, or the logistics or the HR department, the diversity and inclusion departments. They'll put out strategic plans that lay out, here's our goals, here's what we're trying to do. And under each goal is an objective of how we'll measure our movement towards that goal. And then metrics are based on the those objectives and the activity. It's really measuring the activity. But when you understand those, the cool thing about it is you can look and go, well, I can't help on these 3 goals, but these other 2, I can. Well, now you're talking not to all their goals and, hey, we can help you do everything, but we can really help you here. That is communicating that you care because you just showed them. Here's some examples of where you can do research, online, et cetera, but you can find strategic plans, which I just described. An action plan is where they go to the next level and they're saying, well, what are we going to do to be able to achieve the objectives and the goals that we have stated in the strategic plan? So it goes a little deeper. Sometimes I find out like which office, branch, division, et cetera, is the lead on particular objectives. And so the action plan, if you can find those, really lay that out. And the annual report looks back and says, hey, in our strategic plan before, we tried to do this in FY22, and here are the results. Basically, annual reports say, here's what we accomplished. Here's some of the things we did not accomplish and the challenges going forward, et cetera. So it's a really good understanding of what they're doing. Another place you can go is OIG or GAO, so Office of Inspector General or the Government Affairs Office. These two look into a particular agency. Let's say the Navy. They look into the Navy, and annually they might do some reports. Sometimes you can find them as called management challenges. These are basically just looking at an agency. Hey, our observation is that they're running into these kind of challenges, and we recommend they take this action. That's fantastic, because not only can you see that and see where you can help on those challenges, but you can see the agency's response where they say, nah, that's not really a problem. Or they go, yeah, that sucks. I don't know what we're going to do, kind of thing, right? So when you are looking at these challenges, you're able to see it. And then obviously you can go to websites, LinkedIn, big conferences. So the Air Force, for example, has a big conference where they're talking to themselves basically, and they let industry come in. So it's awesome to come in and hear how Air Force leadership is communicating to Air Force personnel. And when you hear that, you really begin to hear, again, a different way of here's the challenges that face us. This is our mission. This is what all of us are going to get done as we move forward. And I swear, when you're in these conferences, you get fired up. You start feeling like you want to put on a uniform. But most importantly, you're getting the information that helps you really understand that agency. So that's pretty important there. I want to give you one tip on each of these pages as I go forward. So something you can take. There's a lot here, but one thing I want you to pay attention to is you can take, as you become an expert in the Air Force, Navy, education, whatever, what you learn and share it out. You find a strategic plan, share it out. You find a long-range acquisition forecast, share it out. If you find, hey, here's the Navy's top 10 challenges, don't keep it to yourself. That's old school selfishness. First off, that's just wrong. Second off, it's stupid, right? It's like it's ineffective. If you share it, then you will get visibility among teammates who might want to work with you. They go, man, this person knows the Air Force, for example. You get visibility on the Air Force. If you grab information, keep it to yourself, how does it help you or anybody else really beyond that knowledge? But if you share it out, now you're really building the relationship, and you truly are trying to help the Air Force, right? Because you're sharing those challenges out, because maybe somebody else can help with some of those challenges. So keep that tip in mind. As you learn, share. Okay, so let's talk about where you can find some of the names, numbers, and email addresses in the 7-step process for federal revenue success that we lay out. Step 1 is research. Step 2 is targeting. And this really is about finding the right people, right? You can watch my other training on that. I've got almost 300 trainings in the last 12 months. And so you can find training on this topic where we go into depth. But today I just want to give you 10 ideas of where you can go find names, numbers, and email addresses as a business developer. That's one of your main jobs, is to find the names of people so that you can build relationships. Business developers learn about an agency and build relationships and find opportunities. And so here, let's talk about where you can go look. SAM.gov, great place to go, because in there are documents that are forward-looking and past. So past awards, past contracts, past RFPs, et cetera. But in those documents, you will find a lot of information. First and foremost, usually you have 2 points of contact in almost every SAM notice. And so go in there for your target agency in the target direction that you're looking for and pull that information out. That's how all these data service providers do it, is they go in, they grab that stuff, and they bring it out. And so you can do this on your own. FPDS, same kind of thing. You can go in here. There's a lot of information, but one of the first things I just want to mention on FPDS is when you go into a typical item within FPDS, and by the way, I'm not saying what the words are anymore, because no one calls it Federal Procurement Database System. That's what it's called, but we all call it FPDS. We all call it SAM. Those are the terms we should learn. That's all you need to know. You never really need to know the acronym breakdown. Sidebar, right? But in FPDS, when you open up an item that you wish you had won, for example, because it's only past awards, when you open it up, top right-hand corner, you will see the name of a contract officer or somebody in the acquisition support side of the house, their name, email, address, and you can go chase that down for a phone number. And it'll take you 5 minutes to find phone numbers like that. right? So that's a really good one. LinkedIn company pages. You're not going to find email and phones here, but it's a great way to find names. And I use PEO Digital because I just like that for some reason in the Navy. But if I go into LinkedIn, I can go to the PEO Digital page and I'll find, I think there's like 200, 300 employees there or something. And in there, I can see the different people that I might want to reach out to. And now I can gather their names. Now I'll go off and search for their numbers and emails, through websites, et cetera. So speaking of websites, you can go into the agencies and find contact information within the agency website. Some agencies, they don't share a lot, and it's not intelligence, right? Sometimes I go into civilian agencies and they don't share a lot, and DoD does share a lot. But your target agency, if you go to their website and really scour it, you will find certain times, like DHS is one of my favorite. You go in there and they have a ton of contact information about their small business professionals, about their acquisition people, about a lot of the program office leaders. And sometimes you will find their names, phone numbers, and emails. More often than not, names and emails, but that's a start right there, right? So there's a lot to be got on the agency website. You could do the same for companies, especially large companies. Small businesses, you go in, you might look in the about and you'll see the owner or something. But large businesses, they actually put points of contact in there. And I describe this, my favorite example is Booz Allen, but all of them are basically like this. If you go into Booz Allen, you can find people's names, numbers, and email addresses and find out what they're responsible for. I might go to Booz Allen and type in Navy, for example, and see what comes up. And I just look for things that look interesting. When I dig in, I'll see at the bottom sometimes somebody's name and number. If I look at a contract vehicle, and I might want to pursue that one because it's Seaport Next Generation, I can go into Booz Allen's page for contract vehicles and find people's names, numbers, and emails, right? This is what I teach the people when I work with them, but it's what you can do on your own. DSBS is where you find owners of small businesses. That's fundamentally it. If you go in there, you will find a point of contact for every small business in there, and you can go into FPDS or USA Spending or something and find companies that you want to talk to and come back to DSBS to find their contact information. You can also say, hey, I want to find a bunch of SharePoint companies in Oklahoma. Type SharePoint, type Oklahoma, and the information will come back with a list of companies there. And then you will find names, numbers, and emails for those business owners so you potentially can team up. Attendee list. And I know I'm going at a fire hose because I got a whole nother slide I want to get to. Attendee lists are perfect. You can get these by attending an event and asking for the attendee list, or you can go into SAM, and sometimes in SAM, just go to SAM and search attendee list. Or Industry Day or whatever. But when you search for that and it comes up, often an attachment will be there with the attendee list. I just did a poll recently and like 98% of the people said they wish the government would share the attendee list more. But in there, you will find points of contact, not just for small businesses and large businesses, and more often than not, large business capture and business development managers, not the SBLOs. And then you also will find sometimes they'll slide in who came from the agency, which is awesome. Even if it just has the name, it gives you a starting point that you didn't have before. The GAL, this is an example of acronyms that I don't want to spell out, right? It stands for Global Address List, but that's the last time I want to say it, at least today. But the GAL is how we call it. And basically the GAL is the phone book inside an environment. So if you're in an agency like Department of Education and you're an incumbent, then you're in there and you have an email account, you have access to the GAL. So you can go in, go take the time to go to Google and research GAL and learn about this, because I guarantee you there are people who know about using it and others who don't. And it's really important, even in the way you do this ethically, right? You got to make sure you feel comfortable with whatever you're doing. But one of my favorite things to do is to just teach government people how to use the GAL. So I will teach a small business professional how to go into the GAL, find the CISO, and then find the people who are direct reports of the CISO. They don't know how to do it, but the minute they know how to do it, they go, oh yeah, sure, I'll make an introduction. So now I'm ethically staying away from any data that maybe you feel concerned about, but you're teaching your buyer how to use their own tools. That's called the GAL, Global Address List. Oh, I violated my rule and told you what it meant. Government, the GovCon Chamber of Commerce website, and me. So these are the last two places where you can find names. On our website, we've got a directory of over 1,000. In fact, we're just releasing one for May this week, and it has 100 new small business professionals in this list. So over 100 or over 1,100 names, numbers, and email addresses. So that you can get on our GovCon website. And then go to my personal profile on LinkedIn. Follow me, hit the bell. I only share government contracting stuff, no fluff, right? And no distractions. And so when I put information in there, more often than not, the documents I'm sharing have contact information, or if they don't, in order to make my post more valuable to you, I'm often trying to research, okay, who would be the points of contact for this document? And I put it into my post. I'm not putting in their emails and phone numbers, but I'm putting in their link to their LinkedIn, their own LinkedIn profile. So follow that stuff and track on it. So my tip for you, just as you're moving forward, is create a lead list. Targeting is about having a lead list of 100, 200 people, et cetera, but create a lead list and keep it at a running level of 100 people so that you always have new people to call. Just take 15 minutes, 30 minutes once a week and add a bunch of names, numbers, and emails to this list at your target agency that you'll eventually reach out to. Okay, so let's talk about where to find slam dunk opportunities. And what I mean by slam dunk are that when you look at it, you go, man, this opportunity was written for our company, right? All things being equal, we're going to win this. That's what a slam dunk is. Too often we go for opportunities that are not slam dunks. I'm going to put a little bullet that says drink water to remind me. So let me give you some places you can look for opportunities. Obviously, you can go to sam.gov. And by the way, don't dismiss sam.gov because it's a great place to go in. You can find RFIs. Inside there, they sometimes post their long-range acquisition forecast. They'll do industry days. So they'll be putting stuff into sam.gov. It's not just about something that's out there, but you can also look for past awards in sam.gov, or you can look in FPDS and find past awards, the ones that are expiring. You want to look out. I have customers who are in STARS 3, and so I look at the STARS 2 opportunities that will be expiring. They're probably going to go on to STARS 3, and so I want to identify those and bring them forward. When I look at USA spending, I'm looking here a little bit differently. I'll still look for opportunities that might be expiring, for example, in USA spending. But when I find something I really like, I'll look at the company, right? I can look at FPDS and get a whole bunch of expired stuff. But USA spending, I can just click on the company and I'll go to a new report page that will show me that company and what they're winning and where they're winning it at other agencies, et cetera. And so I can begin to follow my competitors, basically, right? And anybody who's ever seen my training, I don't want you to spend a lot of time on your competitors, but looking at your competitors to see opportunities is a great way. So just click on them in USA spending and you'll see the rest. You can do this in FPDS as well, but it's uglier in FPDS. Long-range forecast, right? So most agencies have a long-range acquisition forecast. Basically, these are the opportunities coming out in the future. And they try to go out years, 2, 3, 4 years out. But these long-range acquisition forecasts, you can go get a copy of them for your agency and download it. We have a directory on the govconchamber.com website, free directory, email right on the homepage. And that has, I think, over 100 different long-range acquisition forecast links. And so we make it easy. You don't even have to search for them. You just, I'm looking for HHS or I'm looking for this or that. You can click on it and go straight in. Make sure you build strategic relationships. When you have strategic relationships with teaming partners, you can talk to your teammates as strategic partners. These people you talk to on a regular basis, and you will hear about opportunities. In fact, that's what larges say. Hey, if you want to work with us, bring us opportunities, right? We'll do the same to them. Say, you bring me opportunities too. Number 6 is SBA business opportunity specialists and procurement center representatives. Both of these people in their role, and there's many of them across the country, they work with agencies near them. So business opportunity specialists tend to be a little bit more geographically focused, but still dealing with agencies within that region. And then PCRs, procurement center representatives, they're assigned particular agencies, particular military bases, and they work with the contracting officers. Both of these people will hear about opportunities. If you build a relationship with them and maintain that relationship, then they will notify you about opportunities when it begins to fit your stuff. PTACs and APEC accelerators, a similar thing. They don't have as tight of a relationship with the federal buyer, but they absolutely are contacted by buyers who are looking for small businesses just like yours. This next one, number 8, is vendor outreach sessions, also known as advanced planning brief to industry, I think APBI, or matchmaking. But you get the point, right? The vendor outreach sessions. When you go in there, you'll hear about opportunities. You'll hear about it from people all around, or you hear about it when you're sitting at a matchmaking event. So you want to go to these to be able to hear things. Agency relationships, right? If you build relationships, these people will tell you about what's going on in there, and they'll give you an early heads up about something is going to be coming down. And then in meetings, the last thing I wanted to tell you is in a meeting, make sure your staff knows how to hear implied needs. Implied needs are opportunities. They're not proposals and awards, right? But they're needs. Teach your staff how to hear implied needs. So you have, however many people, but if you have 100 people working for you billable, make those people all listen for opportunities. All they have to do is let somebody know, and you can follow up with the customer to pursue it. So that's a great one as well. So the last tip for you here is just know your slam dunk criteria, right? Make sure you understand what is a slam dunk criteria for us. I did a whole training on how do you determine that criteria. So today, as it relates to Business Development 101, it really could be 101 and 301 at the same time. But what we talked about is making sure you understand business development is knowing an agency better than they know themselves, showing that you care that way. I gave you some tips on where you can find people and where you can find opportunities within your agency. And the one last task or suggestion I want to give you is go read your target agency's annual report. I mentioned that. It's not that many pages, but go find it and read it. Spend lunch reading it and get a better understanding of your target agency. If you get value from these trainings, become a sustaining member today and help other small businesses get access to it. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one in our BD Accelerator workshop, just ping me on LinkedIn. This is for companies that are already making money and want to go to the next level. And the last thing is just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.